do your homework, you're going to see that they have been conditioning us and using propaganda to get us to go along with this microchip society. Okay? As far back as 1973, folks, okay, do the research yourself. Senior scholastics introduced 1973. What were they teaching you in school? Here's what kids were getting. Introduced school-age children to the concept, listen, of buying and selling using numbers, direct quote, I'm not making this up, I challenge you, unveil yourself to the truth, okay? It's a feature that they use. It's called Who is Watching You, and they were teaching this in school. The concept of buying and selling using numbers, quote, inserted in their forehead. In the September 20th, 1973 feature, Who is Watching You, the secular high school journal speculate, quote, all buying and selling in the program will be done by computer. This is back in 1973.
Wow.
No currency, no change, no checks. Okay? In the program, people would receive a number that had been assigned them, listen, tattooed, they just came out with that technology, tattooed in their wrist or forehead. The number is put on by laser beam and cannot be felt. The number in the body is not seen with the naked eye, and it is permanent as your fingerprints. All items of consumer goods will be marked with a computer mark. Okay? The computer outlet in the store, which picks up the number on the items at the check stand, will also pick up the number in the person's body and automatically total the price and, listen, deduct the amount from the person's bank account? Listen to what the society they're developing. Special drawing rights accounts.
Wow.
1973. 1974 article called The Specter of Eugenics. Charles Frankel pointed out, suggestions that a mark be tattooed on the foot or the forehead of every young person, envisioning this kind of a society. 1980, U.S. and News World Report continued the warning, pointing out that the federal government was contemplating, quote, national identity cards. Think all this stuff is new? Don't think so, folks. And that in 1980, we're contemplating this, and that without which nobody could work or conduct business. So you think it just came out a few weeks ago? With this whole work visa thingy? Do your math, folks. Do your homework. The Denver Sun followed up in 1981, claiming that chip implants, quote, could someday replace ID cards. That's exactly what we just talked about, Derek. You start on the outside. Oh, no, there's a flaw in it. Oh, you better make it secure and get on the inside. They said that they could... chip implants could someday replace ID cards. The June 21st, 1981 story read, quote, in part, the chip is placed in a needle which is affixed to a simple syringe containing an antibacterial solution. The needle is capped and ready to, quote, forever identify something or somebody. April 27, 1998, Time magazine ran this story, and it's called, last time I checked, it was still on the internet, you can check it out. It's called The Big Bank Theory and What It Says About the Future of Money. That's what it's entitled. Okay, it says, quote, your daughter can store the money any way she wants, on her laptop, on a debit card, and in the not-too-distant future, on a chip implanted under her skin. Excuse me? In 1998, folks, the BBC covered the first known human implantation with a microchip. Okay, and it has done nothing but it's spread there again and again. We got people down there in Florida. That was the big news several years ago. The Jacobson family, I believe they were called, and the whole family made it a family affair. That we got to get this thing implanted. Okay, unless you think, folks, that they're not starting with voluntary, and then the ultimate goal is to make it mandatory. Now, the reason why we know that's going to happen, why, Derek? Because I'm making this up? No, because it was prophesied 2,000 years ago. It said he literally caused or made them to receive this mark. Listen to this. Okay, Franklin Pierce Law Center says, quote, a mandatory national identification system via microchip implants could be achieved in 2 stages. Listen to this. Upon introduction as a voluntary system, the microchip implantation will appear to be palatable. We'll get used to it.
Right.
Quote, after there is a familiarity with the procedure and its knowledge of its benefits, implantations, direct quote, will become mandatory.
Wow.
George Getz, he says this. Let me show you a couple more. He says, after all, the government has never forced anyone to ever have a driver's license. but try getting along without one. When everyone from the local banker to the car rental man to the hotel operator to the grocery store requires one in order to you to take advantage of the services. Notice this, buy and sell. That, he says, amounts to a de facto mandate. If the government can force you to surrender your fingerprints to get driver's license, why can't it force you to get a computer chip implant? In the same way Social Security numbers were voluntary before becoming mandatory, biometric chip implants will be compulsory in the future. In fact, folks, even Applied Digital Solutions, the chief executive officer is a guy named Richard Sullivan. He envisions a scenario, quote, where people are required to be chipped or have some combination of device requiring them to be scanned and monitored at all times. Okay? And you might say, hey, man, there's just no way that a government is ever going to require people to receive a universal identification mark. Well, hello, folks, study your history. What did Hitler do with the Jews? What did he do to those people?
He took them out to dinner.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, we know what he did. I mean, it's horrible what he did, but yeah. And the technology that we do have, I'll tell you what, Hitler would love to have this stuff we have today.
But here's the deal. This is the same premise what he did to the Jewish people, now to everybody on the planet, except it's on steroids, microchip steroids. And it has the ability to not just identify these people through a manual database system like what he used, but it's now going, for the first time in mankind's history, it's going electronic on a global scale, folks, and it's already here, okay? And if you don't think, folks, this is going to become mandatory, it's crazy. We are already becoming conditioned to give other portions of our body parts, okay, over under the guise of fear. DNA. To me, this is a clear thing. We're getting so used, folks, to giving up our DNA, okay, and put in a database to be able to monitor and identify us, that we don't even sneeze about it, folks. Right now, the FBI's DNA database, folks, is the largest in the world.
Wow!
And the plans that they have. This was reported by ABC News. The feds, their plans ultimately are to collect DNA from every person they arrest, quote, whether they have been charged or not, and they're going to do it through a cheek swab, okay? And it says the new regulation would mean that the federal government could store DNA samples of people who are, quote, not guilty of any crime. You see, it was just for those criminals. But don't you understand? You work at the ends of the spectrum, okay, but you're working ultimately towards your ultimate goal. And you might think, well, they can't do that. Well, folks, and this was actually Derek, I believe, down there, West Palm Beach, Florida. Okay, drunken drivers. It says, beware if you drink and drive. The Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office and other law enforcement will be out for your blood. Deputies plan to set up driving under the influence checkpoints. Okay, if they suspect a driver is under the influence, they'll offer on the spot breathalyzer. But if the driver refuses, deputies will ask to draw blood.
Wow.
Now, folks, that was February of last year. It's already in place, folks. Okay, well, that's unconstitutional. Well, get this. You better pay attention. They're closing the gap. This is an article from Newsmax. It says, religion, even if you want to say, well, not just you don't want to, but if you try the old Trump card, well, it's against my sincerely held religious beliefs. Well, listen to this. Religion says no defense from giving DNA. A federal appeals court on Tuesday said they refused to stop the government from taking DNA from a prisoner who claims that the process would violate his religious beliefs. Okay, the guy claimed that the collection violated the Religious Freedoms Restoration Act as well as the First, the Fourth, and the Fifth Amendments of our Constitution, saying that the collection and retention of his DNA information is, quote, tantamount to laying the foundation for the rise of the Antichrist. Which I agree, but what happened? It got struck down in court. Too bad. We're going to take it from you anyway. And then, folks, did you notice back in April of 2008, President Bush signed into law the National DNA Databank, which allows the federal government to screen the DNA of all newborn babies in the U.S.?
Wow.
Yeah, you might want to check it out, folks. There's all kinds of things. Now, here's my point. We are getting conditioned right now to mandatorily, okay, remember it was voluntary. That's always what it is. You start at the end of the spectrum, you work your way in. It's voluntarily they are taking something from inside you, right? Now it's mandatory, right? They're going to get you, your DNA. Now stop it and put it two together, folks. It's all coming to the same corral. But now they can move to mandatorily put something inside you. I wonder what that's going to be. Don't you get it?
Right.
I mean, at the same time, we're all being conditioned with the right response. You say, well, they're not going to do it. Really? Hey, folks, we exposed this a couple of years ago, actually, in our book Revelation study. They're doing it with soldiers. Direct quote. This is from CNN. The video clip of CNN tracking troops. Okay, here's what the transcript said. The military is already using some type of GPS on soldiers. But what more can be done? When soldiers go missing, could tracking devices put on their bodies help find them faster? One option, direct quote, placing a tracking microchip under the service member's skin, okay, is one option. Former U.S. Special Operations officers tell us they believe that it's being developed. And some law enforcement units back home have experimented with implanting chips that give physical data about the officers. Oh, but they're not just doing it with soldiers, they're doing it with prisoners. Hey, it says, here's an article, says prisoners are going to be chipped like dogs. Officials are planning to implant machine-readable microchips under the skin of thousands of offenders as part of an expansion of the electronic tagging scheme that would create more space in jails. Instead of being contained in bracelets, remember, that's the first one you got used to. You know, put the thing around your ankle?
Right.